What's going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS preview for this week's Zozo Championship. Gonna break down what you need to know heading into this week to have yourself a week in this GPP contest, and we'll go through a few players towards the top of the player pool that I'm going to keep an eye on, and then some value options towards the end as well that you might want to mix in for some much needed salary relief. We're fresh off of a smash week at the Shriners. Of course, guys, we hit Tom Kim back-to-back with outrights, so congrats to anyone out there that tailed. Of course, for the GPP side, Hostler was in contention. Guys like Callum Turan, Harry Hall were respectable fantasy scorers themselves. So let's keep the ball rolling, right? Go out there, continue to have decent results week after week, and head overseas there to Shiba, Japan for this week. Super excited for it. Is an absolutely pure golf course and a relatively stacked field for one of these fall series events. So a lot to look forward to, a lot of excitement this week. Let's go ahead and get this thing rolling. We'll start with a look at the key stats where all of the winners around Narashino Country Club have been ball striking specialists and some of the better ball strikers that we have in all the world at this point. So back in 2020, first ever event at this golf course, Tiger Woods ended up taking it home. You had Hideki Matsuyama win it 2 years ago, and last year Keegan Bradley, right? Just another striper with those irons, and that really shouldn't be a surprise. This is, one of the shorter tracks that we have this time of year, but at the same time, it is extremely demanding with the iron play. There's plenty of short par fours out there, but there's also plenty of 500 plus yard par fours. So you're going to get tested, whether it's with your irons, mid irons, your wedges, your long irons. You're going to have to pretty much hit every shot in the bag, and with how sloped and how fast the greens run over there in Tokyo, that's where you get all the difficulty. When you miss the greens with how fast they are, they're almost impossible to get up and down on. They're not quite as sloped as some of the American golf courses, but when they're running at like 13 and a half on the stint meter, it's real tough, right? Even if you have a lot of room to work with to get the ball up and down. And rather than focusing on around the green play, right, putting, where you might save yourself a little bit, really the guys that have found success are the ones that can keep themselves out of trouble. I mean, just think about Tiger Woods, right? Maybe the most strategic player of all time. Back there in 2020, wasn't really firing in all cylinders, yet still won this event without much practice leading into it all. In fact, I think he hadn't played for like 6 months professionally before that, and went out there and won this event by avoiding the big blow-up holes. So when you look at the key stats over here, it's going to be a lot of the ball striking first metrics, whether it's shots gained approach, where you're really looking at a real balanced build. There's not a ton of wedges, right? There's not a ton of long irons. You're pretty much going to need every range. In terms of off the tee, you need to be accurate and long here. On some of the shorter par fours, you can get to within 50 yards of the green, right, if you're an elite tier bomber. But at the same notion, on some of the longer par fours, they're literally a layup hole if you miss the fairway. They are extremely penal rough around this golf course. You also have a lot of tree-lined fairways, which make it nearly impossible to hit the green if you miss the short stuff. So this is an off the tee and an approach heavy golf course. And then outside of that, right, you can look at bent grass putting. That is the main surface for this week. You can look at birdie or better percentage, right, on top of being absolute stripers. A lot of the winners, top 5, top 10s at this event, have been people that are aggressive and make a lot of birdies. But more than anything, right, you just want pedigree, right? This is a part of the year where we don't have much recent form. There's not a lot of lean-in form for players in the field here. So we want to look at their long-term pedigree, right? Maybe their results at this event, and use that to make our picks this week, right? It's kind of similar to what we had at the Shriners, where a lot of the field, right, didn't have lead-in form. And I was more so just looking at, a player's fit for the golf course in general, right? It's the same kind of week. It's what we have to deal with here in the fall series when these guys aren't consistently playing week after week. Now, with that being said, we're looking for ball strikers, which is why for our first 2 picks here, we've got 2 ball strikers that are in decent form, right, towards the end of the year, but more importantly, ones that have a track record of success around this golf course. So we'll start with Xander Schauffele, who not only won the Tokyo Olympics at my #1 comp course, and very similar from the agronomy, from the playing standpoint, what they had there for the Tokyo Games. Also, at this very event, this golf course has finishes of T9, T28 isn't that great in this kind of field, but 2 top 10 finishes out of his 3 starts here is certainly respectable, right? And if you do it on a comparative basis, he has one of the more consistent course histories of anybody in this field. He's played here in all 3 events. He has some Japanese heritage to his name, so I think that's why he likes to make the trip over here. And with that familiarity, with the decent form coming in, it looks a lot like the Tom Kim scenario last week, right? It made too much sense, right? A guy that likes the golf course, is playing pretty well, right? Is one of just the best players in the world to begin with. And Tom Kim, I know he got some ownership in DFS. I know some people out there weren't thrilled about that and faded him because of it. If you're going to eat chalk, guys, you do it with the 9 and 10K range, right? You do it with these absolute studs that are worthy of being 30% owned. And, you know, with Xander, he's going to be at least 30%, right? It's going to be just like Tom Kim last week. Morikawa is also going to be really chalky. I'd say the only saving grace here is that the top of the 9K, even bottom end of the 10K range is pretty stacked, right? You've got Hideki, right? Past champion. You've got Ricky Fowler, who's played pretty well over this way as well. But you know, Xander Schauffele kind of stands above the rest, right? Same thing with Colin Morikawa here. They're both going to be pretty popular here. So I'm okay with that. I know that with playing Xander Schauffele that I'm going to be eating quite a bit of ownership, but as long as with your other 5 spots, you're differentiating, right? You're taking 1-2 guys that'll be sub 5% owned, you're not going to run into issues. Even in the largest field of GPPs, you aren't going to run into issues. First off, duplicates in golf are a lot more rare. And second off, as long as you have those few pieces of leverage, it doesn't really matter the chalk that you're taking, right? It's like a Sunday Showdown slate. You're going to have a few guys that are mega chalk out there. It's about the other 3 or 4 spots that you're working with. Our next core play here is going to be Keegan Bradley at $9,200. Same kind of skill set, right? Very balanced, really good ball striking. It's kind of what he's been known for over the last decade or so. He's $9,200 and has an elite course history. So if we go ahead, look at that. He won this last year. We all know that, right? But T7 finished there 2 years ago. And back the last time they played this event, there 4 years ago, he had a T13 finish. The reason why I said there's only 3 years of course history is just know that in 2021, they did not play at this golf course. So I have it on here, but it really doesn't mean all that much. And the 3 events that it mattered, right? He's got a win, a top 10, right? Top 7 finish, and then a T13 finish his first time here. So clearly fits the track. And when we think about ball striking courses where you've got to be really good off the tee and really good on approach, well, Keegan Bradley is like top 10%, we'll say, in both categories of the PGA Tour. I was going to call him the lead in both categories, but I don't know if I'd go that far, but he's certainly solid in both categories, which is kind of what we're looking for here. With Xander and with Keegan, if you look at the last 36 rounds, you see 2.1 shots gained per round for Xander, one of the best, I believe, maybe even the best number in all of the field. And then for Keegan Bradley, maybe hasn't been as eye-popping, but still gaining across all 4 categories, has been really good with the putter, which is a huge surprise for him. Compared to his long-term baseline. But at this very event last year, gained a ton of strokes of the putter. Obviously was pretty solid with the ball striking as well. I hope that he can go do that back-to-back, right? We had Tom Kim, the back-to-back champion. We've hit a few back-to-back champions over the past year, and maybe this will be like number 3 or 4 there on that end. Before we hop into our last 2 plays, I'll remind you guys, if you want access to everything you see on the spreadsheet, including everything that is blacked out, check out the Patreon page. There's a link down below. On there, you can get access to these spreadsheets, not only for the main slate, but also for rounds 2 through 4 showdown. We've got updates up until lock, right, with the modeling, projections, so on and so forth. So make sure to check that out if you guys haven't already as well. But in terms of our value plays, the first one's going to be Tom Hoge, another player that has played pretty decently over the last few weeks. Did miss the cut last week, which was a little bit strange for Hoge. He's not used to missing the cut out there in Vegas. Had a pretty good track record there. But T13, right? 21st, 43rd place finishes, right? So is at least making the weekend in most of his starts. I believe one of these was a no-cut event, so we won't give him credit for a made cut over there, but still playing some decent golf. The shots gained metrics, right, show that same kind of story, right? Not the best off the tee, right? Really is never that good off the tee, but really good approach player and solid putter. And then at this event last year, this is why I'm kind of looking at Tom Hoge here, is he had a good finish, right? Finished T9. Year before that, was able to finish in 17th place. So it was gone out there, finished in the top 20 his 2 trips here, but more than that, has been decent with the putter, which is, you know, kind of the X factor for Hoge, right? He's always going to game with the irons. He's one of the best approach players on tour. That is very consistent for Tom Hoge. He's usually always really good with the irons. Where he goes out there and he spikes for those top 10s is when he gains 3-4 strokes of the putter. And given the little breadcrumbs we've seen from him at this golf course of potentially being able to find some success, I do have some optimism that he's able to get to that kind of performance. So $7,800, especially when you compare some of the other names in this range, I'd say he's by far the highest pedigree golfer in terms of long-term form. And then the event history, I know it's not eye-popping, right? But like 2 top 17 finishes, right? The 17th, right? Maybe not GPP viable, but this T9 last year at this kind of price tag, right? $7,800, that could easily be a filler in one of your GPP lineups. So, I mean, even the largest field GPPs could probably take down, a GPP with Tom Hoge in your lineup. Right? It's not going to be the reason you won the GPP, right? Don't get me wrong, right? The top 3 in terms of placement and fantasy points are going to be the ones that do that, but you're also not going to kill yourself with that T9 finish, and he certainly has better upside than that. So in this no-cut event, I do like his chances to go out there and have a week, and I think he'll be relatively low owned too. And then our last value play down here at $7,000, another player that has a track record here, right? That has shown it over the last 3 years. So if we go down to Sam Ryder at $7,000, you can see he finished in 36 last year. That's not really what impressed me all that much. It was 2 years ago when he wasn't nearly the golfer that he is today, where he had a T7 finish. I played him that year. He was in decent form heading into that event, went out there and popped. And if you take a look at the recent form now, well, it's a whole lot better, right, than what we had there 2 years ago. He had a T28 finish, T51, T14, so 3 straight made cuts, including 2 top 28 finishes. In terms of the shots gained metrics, right, Sam Ryder's a much better player now than what he was 2 years ago. He's right around a neutral with the off the tee. Putter is actually usually a positive for him, so I think we might see some positive regression from Sam Ryder, but the approach play has been absolutely electric, and that is what most intrigues me about the play here, is that he's by far the best iron player in this range. You can see Royo Hisatune, pretty decent, but it's all small sample size right there. Of anyone with a real sample, he's lapping the field in the approach play, right? And this is over a last 36 round baseline. This is a relatively large sample that we're working with here. So if you're looking for good iron players this week, which is RMO, right, with our key stats, then you have to play Sam Ryder, right? He's $7,000. He's way too cheap. He has a decent track record around this event, right, with that top 7 finish. All things that are putting me towards playing him here. So the ownership might be there, right? I would expect some people to play Sam Ryder, especially considering that this is a no-cut event, right? He'll probably be at least 10% owned, but at that kind of ownership level is something that I'll at least get 1.5, maybe 2x leverage to the field on, given that he's checking a lot of the boxes that we're looking for. Alrighty, guys, that is all I've got for the DFS preview this week. Before you hop on out of here, first off, appreciate the support. Go ahead, smash that like button for me, but also go ahead and comment down below who you've got winning this golf tournament. Last week, we had someone with the winner with Tom Kim. Of course, he was one of our core plays, so I'm glad one of you guys out there was able to tail that. They won a free month of the Patreon, right? So if you're able to go out there, guess that winner, you're going to go ahead and get that free month. And by the way, if you were the winner last week, I tried reaching out to you. Make sure you send me a message so I can get you hooked up with that. So go ahead, give me guys your thoughts down below, perhaps somebody that you've already fired an outright bet on. And just for my take, right, just for transparency's sake, we had Tom Kim last week. I'm not going to take Sam. We're going to take Keegan. We're going to go for another back-to-back winner. I've got a little feeling about it. I don't think that's happened for quite some time, where we've had back-to-back winners and back-to-back weeks. It's a good setup for it. Keegan Bradley has got to be feeling some type of way right after the Ryder Cup snub. We're going to go with Keegan Bradley. So let me know your thoughts down below. Maybe you're riding on the Keegan train, or maybe you've got a completely different name on the tip of your tongue. Either way, guys, I appreciate the support. Best of luck with all of those lineups this week. Join the Patreon for access to all of that data, and let's have ourselves a week, fellas.